This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website, a domain, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace and use the discount code AndrewMarr.
G'day guys, I'm back down in the southwest and the first stop I made was this gorgeous looking beach. This is Honeycombs Beach. I've been here several times but I've never actually shot here and taken any landscapes or seascapes. Each time I've been here it's been really windy. But this is probably the least amount of wind I've ever experienced coming down here, and I thought perfect conditions to get the camera out and see what I can find for a composition, and hopefully we'll grab a nice landscape image. When I visited the beach before, I've just explored the sandy area, and there's a couple of nice rocky outcrops in the center of the beach. I've never really explored the southern end, and I've just gone up to it now, and I think there's some beautiful textures in the rocks, and I really love the green moss that are on some of the rock faces as well. So I've grabbed my camera. I'm not confident because I'm not familiar with this end and I've never really explored the rocks here. But I thought I'd bring you along anyway, because even though I may not find an image in the end, all this is about is finding a new location, finding the potential compositions, and who knows, we just might get the right light. Speaking of light, you may be able to see behind me the clouds. It's reasonably cloudy, but there are a couple of breaks, and I can see the sun just approaching the horizon. It sets in around about half an hour, 20 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time, but there's a couple of rays just pointing or shining through, which just gives me a little bit of confidence that we might be able to get a nice little bit of light. Worst case scenario, hopefully a little bit of colour in the clouds. Who knows? I'm feeling good about this. Always enjoy exploring a new location, and it's great to have you guys come along for the ride. So I've just gone through the first crop of rocks back there and around the corner, and there's this gorgeous little bay in front of me. Now on the other side there were heaps of footsteps and footmarks in the sand. Obviously it's a fairly popular beach with the locals. Just a little bit further up in amongst the rocks here, I've got a bay all to myself. There's hardly any footsteps here at all, which is going to potentially give me a shot which is nice and clean, because that's what I'm looking for in amongst all of these beautiful rocks. You know, they start to merge into one another because there's so many here. So I'm looking for patterns. I am looking for a leading line that'll be strong in my image, but I'm looking for simpleness, a simplicity, a minimalist if you like. Certainly in the foreground You don't want too much chaos. This is a gorgeous little bay, but it's not easy to get a simple shot here. And I'm just having a look at the clouds, and there's just a tinge of the first light. So what I'm going to try and do is get to the south side, because I think that'll be a better angle, because as the sun sets in the west, it's slightly to the north. And I think I'll have the best luck with the light. Who knows? So what I'm going to do is go up this scramble of rocks and see what the view looks like from the southern side and see whether I can get a composition. So I think the sun is either setting right now or it sets in a couple of minutes. And unfortunately, those clouds have really closed up around where the sun is setting, and it's really blocking out most of the light and the colour in the sky. So the colour is a little bit flat, the light is a little bit flat. And look, to be honest, I'm not all that crazy about this composition, but I was running out of a little bit of time, and I do like this view. So before I take you through the composition, which is fairly simple, I'll just run you through what I've done with the camera. This is the Z7 with the 14 to 30mm lens on the front, and I've just got the polarizer. That's pretty much it. There is a gap in the horizon on my right-hand side, which is just open sky, and on the image that's going to blow out. But I can't really put a graduated filter on that to darken that down, otherwise the clouds are going to be too dark. So all I'm going to do is just bracket my shot, just a nice simple 2 bracket shot. One for the exposure of the scene, and then another one just to make sure that any clouds around that lighter area off in the distance isn't blown out, and I've got that detail. And I'll just merge them probably in Lightroom, will be the easiest. In terms of the composition, as I said, it was a reasonably simple composition. I've come up on this cliff of rocks, and I'm looking north over this little bay, and what I've got is this group of rocks which has got some nice colour in it. It was a real shame that there isn't more light to cast on the rock to get more of the colour and the detail. There's oranges and reds and greens and even blues there as well. It was this really interesting rock. But unfortunately, it's going to look fairly dark in the foreground. But I've got that pretty much in the bottom right-hand corner. I don't worry too much about getting it exactly on the thirds, and I think some people can get a little bit fanatical about getting things exactly on the thirds. It's just roughly in that bottom corner, just making sure that I've got plenty of gap between it and the edge of my image. That's the only thing I really worry about, is making sure that elements in the image aren't too close or get cut off by the edge of the image or the border of the photo. Anyway, the exposure for this scene pretty much is ISO 64 f11, and that gives me a shutter speed of just slightly slower than half a second. And then that is pretty much it. I was hoping that even behind me here, I'm just keeping an eye on it, just wondering whether there might be a little bit of colour just cast on the clouds behind me, because I felt like there was another composition down at the bottom from the bottom of this little bay on the sand, shooting up towards the southern end. But the clouds have just started to build just as the sun has set, unfortunately, so that is pretty much game over. Anyway, I'm going to have a bit of an explore around, see whether I can find any other compositions. I might even go down and shoot that composition that I saw down at the bottom of the bay. even though it's not the right light, it's just good to have a bit of a go and see what the composition looks like on the back of the screen.
Before I share the images I captured, I just wanted to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. When it comes to a website, I don't want to have to do any coding or worry about installing any updates, and that's exactly what I get with Squarespace. They handle all the feature updates across the platform as well as hosting for the website, so I can focus on creating the content I want to share through my website. Adding pages to my gallery or a blog is such an easy process because so much of it is done through just dragging and dropping the content to where I want it. If you do have any questions about setting up your website, you can use their award-winning 24/7 customer service, which I've found very helpful. You can start your free trial at squarespace.com, and if you do check them out and you want to go ahead with a website, go to squarespace.com/Andrew Marr to get 10% off your first purchase. Now, let's check out those images. As you can see, the light didn't quite do what I wanted. Despite that, I was able to get a couple of solid shots off. When I was editing this image, I drew out some of the detail and the colours in those boulders in the foreground, just to help catch the viewer's eye when they first looked at the image. On the left, I kept that reasonably dark because the seaweed was potentially quite messy there. But I did increase the whites a little to bring out the lines that the foam made as the waves push up the beach. To help draw the eye a little bit further through the image, I brought up the exposure in the rocks in the distance, as well as enhanced the greens created by the moss growing on some of those rocks. As you're about to hear, just after taking the image, I was a little bit disappointed with it, but now I've had a chance to edit the image, I'm much happier with it. I ended up returning to this beach the following evening, but I'll share that in the next video.
So that's it, the lights pretty much disappeared and the colour never eventuated, unfortunately. And I'm a little bit disappointed with the images that I took. If I was thinking back, it's probably because the compositions aren't as strong, and that's understandable because this part of the beach is quite new to me, and I probably need to revisit here a few times to find those little locations and compositions that really work in the area. Without a strong composition, you really are relying on spectacular light to make this wonderful image. That's why I keep on going on about how important composition is, because you're not always going to get great light with every landscape photography trip or shoot. So that's why it's so important not to rely on light for your image, but to be able to work on your composition, because that's where you as the photographer have a better say and better control over the story that your image is going to tell. Anyway, that's it for me. If you liked any of the images or you got anything out of this video, please give the video a like, subscribe for more videos. But until next time, guys, thanks very much for watching.